What's going on, guys? How you doing? Today's video is a donation request. This is for Shawnee. This is a video. Who is this by? This is by the channel Audio Haze, which I clicked on the guy's channel and I was like, wait a minute, this guy's a Berkeley cat, right? I've seen his, it looks like he's recently changed up the videos that he's doing and his whole style and look and stuff like that. And it looks cool. I mean, it seems like he's getting traction on it, but I went all the way down to his older videos and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this guy's channel before. I've at least seen him on YouTube before, so that's really cool. This is his video, how he made a platinum record with a single microphone. Which, you know, Shawnee asked me questions about recording and technical things like this every once in a while, so it makes sense that something like this would, you know, and having me talk on it would pique his interest, which is very cool. Hopefully, I mean, I assume he's seen this video, and hopefully he's seen probably a lot of Audio Haze's videos, because, I mean, I haven't seen them, but just from looking at his channel, I'm like, okay, he's probably an MP&E major, a music production engineering major, if they still call it that. You know, I went there forever ago, decades ago now. Oh God. I'm acting for the camera. I'm joking around. It is wild, but you know, that's reality. Okay, so how he made a platinum record with a single microphone, and this is about Iver. I think that's how you say his name. I think Audio Haze, I don't know Audio Haze's actual name. I think Audio Haze calls him something different, but it's Justin Vernon Iver, right? Which I've heard of and seen Iver's name. I don't know his music. Maybe if I heard something that was popular, maybe I'd recognize it, but I'm not familiar with it. And especially when this came out, when this album came out, I was really isolated in what I was doing in music and what I was listening to, just heavy R&B and jazz and anything I needed to learn for a gig, but mostly heavy R&B and jazz, like tons of it. That's what I was into. So any of the pop music that was happening all throughout 2000 and 2010, I don't know it. I literally, like, unless I learned it for a gig, I missed it. So we're going to check out this video. It's a little bit long. It's almost 15 minutes long, but I think it should be cool, actually. Yeah, I'm excited about it, and then we'll get to talking about it. If you're new here, please subscribe. Check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos. Check it out. I do donation requests like this. So if there's something you want me to watch, listen to, talk about, hit me direct. PayPal, Cash App, Venmo in the notes section. Leave a link, leave a description, and I'll make the video like this. Wow, amazing. Everything's in the description. Go check it out. You can also email me at jpanreadsemail@gmail.com. Thank you, guys. Okay, so Iver. I believe they're talking about the album For Emma Forever Ago, which apparently was recorded with just a SM57, which is this microphone right here. I've got all kinds of them, because they are super cheap and super versatile, right? Use them on guitars, use them on drums, use them on vocals if you really want to, depending on the vocals. Use them on a lot of things. Snare. It's like an SM58, but I think it may have a different mic pattern, like a slightly different mic pattern and like frequencies, stuff like that. But also it just doesn't have the kind of head, the cap, right, on it, whatever you call them, the screen. I'm not like technical about this stuff. You know, I'm not. I'm a user and a doer, you know? So if you want technical, you got to go to like Rick Beato or something, or like one of these guys. But you know, that's just me. It's the same way with music theory also. I learned it all. You know, I can, you know, took all the tests and all that kind of stuff. I went through all of that, right? But now that I'm out in the world, I don't, you know, like, I mean, out of music school, out of studying music in that kind of way, I'm a user and a doer. I just go, right? It's all here anyways, you know, it's all here. Most people that have watched the channel and know me in that kind of way know that already, so. But if you're new, hello. Okay, so this is all him with an SM57 and some, like, what is it, a silver tone guitar or something, some like cheap guitar? Yeah, an old silver tone guitar. And here's the cap for Gary. Gary may or may not be watching this, but that's for Gary. Cool. So, all right, that's it. That's all we're going to get into. And also the album was from 2006 or 2007. But all right, let's get into this video. It's a little bit long. All right, let's do it. Bam.
One microphone, a guitar, and a platinum record. This is the story of Bon Iver and the meteoric rise of his album For Emma Forever.
So is it
It's
Bon
also
Iver
a story
or Bon
of how the
Iver?
right music will transcend any limitations.
Now there's a lot of story behind this song and a lot of story behind the album For Emma Forever Ago. And if you're watching this video, it is probably a story that you can really relate to. With a single Shure SM57 and a few $200 department store guitars from Sears from like the 1960s, For Emma Forever Ago was certified platinum.
Crazy.
And Skinny Love became the anthem that opened the floodgates for the entire indie folk movement.
Never be my.
It sounds like that.
Staring at the secret blood crushed for me.
Mumford & Sons, Sufjan Stevens, Fleet Foxes, or Phoebe Bridgers, everyone has a little respect that they have to pay to this album for what it did to the musical landscape. And it started with less equipment than you probably have on your desk right now.
Yeah.
Probably. So let's go over it. Let's take a look at the production behind these tracks and see what's going on. Why are these tracks so heart-wrenching? And what techniques can we steal and then use for ourselves? First, the story. Justin Vernon was only 25 at the time of recording this album. He was moving back home to Wisconsin after a 10-year stint with his band in North Carolina. The band had just kicked him out.
10 years, so when he was 15?
He was newly heartbroken.
He had
after
more
a
than
recent
pneumonia,
breakup,
right?
and he was addicted to online gambling.
Damn.
The record kind of started in my head. I was living in North
He had
Carolina.
like mononucleosis or something like that, liver failure or something,
really
something with
homesick,
liver.
And I was also really sick. I had like a liver infection and pneumonia and all this stuff. And I think what was going through my head at the time was some very stirring things that have been kind of building up in my life for a really long time.
Vernon was in a rough place, to say the least. Broken down, he decided to retreat into social isolation. The plan was to spend 3 weeks in a remote hunting cabin in the middle of the Wisconsin wilderness.
Cool.
He lived off of beer, eggs, cheese, and whatever he could hunt in the woods. Apparently that was 2 deer. That's what he ended up hunting. 3 weeks soon turned into 3 months. He chopped wood, he cleaned the brush off of the property, he even had an encounter with a bear who tried to get into his house. Eventually, having grown tired of his quote, self-indulgent, lazy lifestyle, he dragged his musical equipment out of the car and decided to work on some songs.
He left
that
it
had
in the
been
car
writing
in the
prior
cold
to
that whole
coming to
time?
the cabin. The gear was really just a few cheap old guitars, a Shure SM57, and a cheaper version of Pro Tools called Pro Tools LE.
When I was sick,
Wild.
I was just like in bed for 3 months, and I was on eBay, and I found this, and I started emailing with the lady that sold it to me. She was from Texas, and I guess it was like her husband's, and it's like a 60s Sears like catalog guitar. I played it, and it was just like, that's amazing. And from there, almost every song on the record was made with it. Like, you can kind of hear how it's really brittle and things like that. And I just put the microphone as close to the F-hole here as possible, and it just got like a really like creaky, really close kind of woody sound.
Now, these pieces that Vernon was working on were notably very different from the prior works that he had been working on with his old band, focusing particularly on the use of falsetto vocals. Oftentimes, they would start completely devoid of lyrics and be completely melody first. And this tapped into something that was just a little bit less literal. We'll get back to this in a minute. When the Wisconsin winters passed, Vernon emerged with 9 demos. Or so he thought. It was a solid start to what would hopefully become his future album. But then, here, why don't you just take a listen?
I didn't know it was a record. I was kind of thinking this is a good step in the right direction. Maybe this is demos. Maybe this is, I didn't know. I wasn't even thinking of even getting it on a record label or anything at that point.
How this guy Audio Haze is making this video is very
my
interesting.
friends, and I was definitely getting kind of feedback that felt different than any other kind of feedback I'd gotten prior to that. And So
all the information he said so far is on Wikipedia, because I looked at it, because I was going to say a bunch of it also.
Let's take a shot with
but,
it. So I sent it out to a few labels. I handed it to a few friends.
And he's using
it just
clips.
really didn't take long. It just sort of happened. You know, it just like went.
Something about those demos, the rawness of them, the roughness of them, really connected with people.
YouTube.
And it really wasn't long before major attention skyrocketed the album to be one of the best debut albums of the 2000s, if not the best. It hit the top 100 charts in the UK. It was featured on Grey's Anatomy, and as of 2020, For Emma Forever Ago has been featured in the top 500 albums of all time, according to Rolling Stone. All of this with less gear than you probably have yourself. It's a classic tale of artistry over production, and even further, using the lack of tools as a tool.
That's right.
In the classic words of Bosco Man, shitty is still pretty. Here, take a look. In this classic production essay, Bosco Man says this: please forget everything you learned about how professional recordings are made and come raw with it. I guarantee you can get a better drum sound from a $20 Radio Shack mic in your garage than you can ever get with a $5,000 U47 in a $300 per hour professional studio. Why do you think all these millionaire rappers sample beats instead of recording them? Gritty, low-fidelity recordings are real, they're honest, and they're very emotionally powerful. You can use that. So one of Bon Iver's most powerful production techniques on this record is his use of vocal layering. And more specifically, layering falsetto vocals.
With auto-tune.
I'm building a step to slow down the tide.
But this is a specific kind of vocal recording that takes advantage of the higher register. Layering and conglomerating multiple parts on top of each other is also nothing new. But by spreading these unique, airy vocals around the stereo image, the top of the mix has a massive amount of high-end presence that provides a delicate choir-like halo around the entire album. In a way, the album kind of lacks a lead vocal, instead kind of led by an entire choir of vocal takes. And even further, by layering these vocal takes on top of each other one by one, imperfections begin to complement one another. The hugeness that you would get from like a $5,000 studio condenser microphone in a professional recording environment have been replaced by an army of smaller, thinner vocal takes. Take a listen to the track Flume, and notice the lack of high end, also the thinness of the guitar, and finally, how the vocals morph together into a ghostly collective. All too commonly, we think of production as a polishing act, cleaning up the song.
Depends on what you're looking for.
The clearest, hugest vocals with the widest, most powerful guitars. And sure, there is a time and place where that's called for. But remember, production is an extension of the songwriting. A tool to the f was that? A tool to it's a tool. Threw me off. It's a tool to emphasize the feelings that you're trying to convey in your music. It is not a race to the perfect mix. The perfect mix doesn't exist. Going into the writing of this album, Vernon was a broken man, and that shows in the songwriting. And further, that shows in the production. The guitar is thin and distant and ghostly at times, and many people would consider it to be recorded improperly. The vocals are brittle and broken, but there are many of them. We could analyze this all day. Dozens of howling vocal takes all conglomerating together. A sense of togetherness through this sort of shared pain. I literally just made that up, but a perfect vocal take doesn't make you think that way. An imperfect one does. So let's talk a little bit about the instrumentation here. Listen to Skinny Love, but pay attention to the guitar and pay attention to the taps and the clicks and the pops that are making up the percussion.
Okay.
Now, Vernon used a unique style of guitar and a unique mic position to get the tone that he did. He had an old 1960s Sears guitar. You used to be able to buy them from like an old catalog. Now, they're really not that great of instruments, but they've become kind of renowned for that thin, bright tone. It's very unique. Now, the S57 is trendy. A dynamic microphone, which means we typically have to mic the instrument a lot closer. Now, Vernon pretty much put that SM57
close to that
almost
as possible
inside of that old guitar. I would assume to try and salvage as much low end from the guitar as possible. Still pretty thin though. I don't have that style of guitar, and odds are you don't either, but we can try and replicate that same tone using a standard acoustic. And the way we do that is with mic position. Now check out Skinny Love for a second and listen closely to the stereo spread of the guitars. Listen for the left guitar and the right guitar and hear how they slightly differ in both rhythm and tone.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and emulate that same exact thing by picking out two different mic positions on the guitar, which will have two different tones, and panning one to the left and one to the right. Now this mic position that you're seeing right now, I'm kind of considering the main position. It has more low end than the other position, so it will have a bit more body and will carry the majority of the tone. Here's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's way darker and has more body and low ends than the Bon Iver, or however you say it.
Worth noting that you can get more brightness out of your guitar by actually changing where you pick. If you pick closer to the bridge, you're gonna get a brighter tone.
Yeah. You don't need a microphone to know that. You just need a guitar to know that, right? Like, and playing. I think right-hand technique is more important than left-hand technique for changing things like that, frankly.
It's like, it's huge. And a lot more unique and a little bit more niche. We found this position by essentially moving the microphone around to different parts of the guitar that are avoiding the sound hole. The sound hole is where you get most of your low end. So by putting the microphone way up here on the neck and making sure to mic it closely, because it's still a dynamic microphone, we can get more brightness without the body, and we're going to get more string noise, more pick noise, things like that. Here's what that tone sounded like.
That's closer to Bon Iver's. That guy's got a cat too. Look at him. Yeah, that's closer to it.
So when we sum these two tones together, we get a pretty nuanced sort of tone that is different on the left side.
Get a more full sound.
These guitars kind of rock in and out of time in a sort of unstable fashion. This could be considered a fault, or we can use that to our advantage in the production. This creates a pretty interesting and dynamic texture as we move through the track. Don't just consider the perfect take to be completely devoid of any issue and, in turn, any uniqueness. Vernon came to this album a pretty broken dude. Life put him through the ringer, and he went to this cabin to go recover. And that process of recovery, that's really what gave birth to this record.
And that was the first time I sort of realized that I had accomplished something, that I had made something. I had made this record, but just as importantly to me is that I had kind of refound myself, or at least carved out another path to live, and healed some wounds that I probably just neglected for too long.
Everything else about the production is constructed to serve the human element to these tracks. Production is not just polish. Production can be polish, but production can also be patina. It's really just doing whatever you need to do to craft the framework of the song to further emphasize the message that you're trying to convey. Forever Forever Ago probably would not have been a success if it was recorded on a $5,000 microphone and in the vacuum of a professional studio. It needed to be born out of a place of isolation. It needed to be born in a darker environment, and it needed equipment that captured that environment in a more vulnerable state. Well, there's a good chance that you've got equipment like that. There's a good chance you have an environment like that. So maybe you should go work on that platinum album yourself, because I know that you've got it in there somewhere too.
Okay.
See you later.
Good job. Cheesy AF. Good job. Okay, cool. Nice. Oh, we got some rain here. All right. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so you hear how, so he's talking about mic placement and things like that. This is cool. This is an interesting video. It's also interesting for me to see how this guy makes his videos because, you know, YouTube. That's interesting. I should also go back to his channel and see if when he started making videos like this, if he all of a sudden saw a spike or anything like that. This is just me talking out loud. Candidly out loud. Anyways, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, mic position. Neither one of those mic positions that he used on his guitar were what Bon Iver or whatever his name is, however you say it. Now I'm not sure. Is it Bon Iver? I always thought it was Bon Iver, but maybe it's not Bon Iver. I'll say Bon Iver from now on. Neither of those mic positions are where Bon Iver said he put his mic. And while they're not the same guitar, I don't know, it would have still been interesting as an audience member, as somebody watching this video, to hear that and then maybe talk on that if it doesn't produce that. I know that he talked about it, like, you know, this isn't the same guitar, and although he did say that normally, you know, if you put it closer to the sound hole, you're going to get more low end, but I want to hear that because Bon Iver said he put it as close to the sound hole as possible, and you're not hearing low end on his. You're hearing it kind of bright, kind of brittle, right? You're not hearing low end. So let me hear that. And if that's not accurate on your guitar because your guitar has like just like a regular circle sound hole, then I don't know. That's something that I'm kind of like, you know, because when he had it further away, it was up and further away. It caught more of the low end. It sounded exactly what he said. It's had more body. It was fuller. It was rounder. It had more low end. Where the higher, when he had up by the neck, it was way brighter. You're getting pretty much the strings, the string noise, all that kind of stuff, right? You're not getting the resonance, right? So it sounded more like Bon Iver's kind of tone. And that's just something, you know, that's just me. In terms of the falsetto and the multi-tracking, I mean, multi-tracking and layering and doubling, or for vocals, tripling, quadrupling. I mean, when I did that freaking Earth, Wind, Fire record, we at least quadrupled all the vocals, like at least. I don't remember because I still have nightmares. It's like you're dealing with like so many tracks to mix, and I didn't mix it, and thank God. I'm not that amazing or fantastic of a mixer to begin with. I'm like, oh, I'm okay, but there are definitely people that are great at who can mix like I play bass with that kind of comfortability, and you know, they know what they can do and what they can't do, you know, just all that kind of thing, right? They can perform with it, but just that many vocals and vocal tracks and vocal takes, and we're talking about not just the lead, we're talking about harmony parts also. Every single vocal at least 4 times. This is where, you know, programs, I had always been a Pro Tools user. Groupings, you know, you start grouping things so you can kind of handle it, you know, and kind of break it down is like super important because, you know, just thinking about it, I feel overwhelmed. I'm just like, oh my God, that's a lot. So I think that that's cool. I haven't heard this record. This sounds like an interesting record, actually. It sounds interesting to me. So maybe it's a thing to check out if people are interested. I don't know if people are interested or not, but maybe. For the story at the least. I mean, it sounds like that's all he had was just his guitar and his voice. And the one clip that I heard that they played had like a kick drum, right? It just sounded like a kick, some kind of kick. So I don't know where that came from, whether he produced it with an actual drum or if it was some kind of other sound that he used or whatever. It looks like the first track has drums on it. Flume, is that the one that they played? I think it was. So that one is the track on the album that has drums on it. So that's what it is. An SM57 is going to sound thinner. It's going to have less body to it. But then that also depends, like you said, on mic position and also proximity. You know, if you get real close, you're going to start sounding like Barry White, stuff like that, right? Proximity effect. And obviously, as the sound source moves away from the microphone, as the microphone moves away from the sound source, it's going to get thinner. So, but sometimes, you know, there are those sweet spots that you're looking for where you get more of the entire frequency range out of the instrument, you know, because if you start, like he's saying, if you start moving it around, you're going to start missing the actual, like where the actual projection is. Like, so if the projection of the sound is going this way, right, is going this way, and your microphone is in the way of it, that's where you want to be, usually. And then you're just kind of figuring, is it better closer? How about if we move it an inch further away? How about 2 inches, 3 inches, 6 inches, etc., 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 right? To kind of get the sounds that you're looking for. But then there's also, well, what happens if we offset the microphone? What happens if we put the microphone to the side? What happens if we put it to this side, etc.? And then there's also using multiple microphones, which for an acoustic guitar is pretty normal. No different than like an electric guitar. You're going to get like a DI, a direct signal. You're going to have maybe an amplifier that has probably 2 microphones on it, one close and one back a little bit. Usually 2 different microphones, stuff like that. So these are all just recording techniques, and they're all going to sound different. And then once they're all recorded, you blend them. All of a sudden you have different tones. Your DI is going to sound different. It's going to have a different tone than your close mic, which is going to have a different tone than your further away mic. Then you can blend or use what you want and what you don't want. You can do what you want with it, really. You know, there's no rules. Just make it sound good. Make it sound how you want. In terms of like the shitty production or whatever, that's where a producer comes in. You know, to me, that's where a producer comes in. Now, he's the producer here, right? He's the producer, Bon Iver, right? Justin Vernon is the producer here, so that's on him. But in all kinds of recordings, whether it's you doing the recordings yourself or whether it's like more professional and you have an actual producer, that's where the producer comes in. They're going to hear your songs, have the vision for the songs, you know, if it's a band, if it's a solo artist, if it's whatever. And they're going to have more of the vision of the production style, which is basically what he's talking about. Production style. This production style is raw. It's raw. That's it. I mean, it's incredible that he used Pro Tools LE as opposed to a 4-track cassette, like a cassette 4-track, right? Like a Porta Studio. Or those, what are those? I used to want one of those. What the heck are they called? The Tascam, Tascam 4, no, what was that super famous Tascam recorder? This one, what is this? This is a 388? Yeah, I think this is it. The 388. Yeah, pretty sure that's it. The Tascam 388. These things, I mean, all kinds of records have been used. We're talking about records like this Bon Iver, where it's like indie records, stuff like that. People like, who's that? I think he's a Canadian artist, Mac DeMarco. He's Canadian, right? Is Mac DeMarco Canadian? Cats like that guy record on stuff like that. Yeah, he's Canadian. Frickin' Canadians everywhere. Jeez. Yeah. That's a whole style and a whole thing. Like people that are just like, I played with a drummer friend of mine, right? Who's like crazy about this stuff, really into this kind of gear and doing things in this way. Like, no, we need to record like this. That's fine if the end result is what you want the quality to be and how it's going to sound, because it's going to sound a certain way. You're not going to be able to get it to sound like you've recorded in Pro Tools. It's just not like that. It's analog. That's, for some people that's a good thing, for some people that's a bad thing, etc., etc. You know, it's just whatever. I mean, what's on the top 100, you know, charts right now? It's probably digital. It's probably digital. If it's analog, it's finished digital, you know. They went in and, you know, whatever. You know, there's lots of things where they like kind of like mix the elements. They're using an SSL going into Pro Tools, stuff like that, right? Or a tape machine going into Pro Tools. So that's what it is. Anyways, very cool. Very cool. Recording techniques, what's possible. There you go. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next video.